Hi, everybody.
That's the first thing they hear. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode here at the Damage Report. And I'm looking at the chat. No, I'm not sick. A little bit sore throat, but I don't think it's anything. And no, I don't live on Kantian time. I'm a couple of minutes late because I'm a couple of minutes late because I am a shell of a man thanks to the pandemic. But in addition to this shell of a man, on today's show, we have Aida Rodriguez once again. You've probably seen her on Netflix and also her podcast, Truth Serum.
Which you are going to come do.
I
What's
hope
up?
so.
Hey, what's up, TYT family? I love y'all. Thank you for having me today.
We're very glad to have you back. We have got so many big stories to talk about, ridiculous stories, but of course, you know, it's 2020, so I guess that's not really any surprise. I saw someone was predicting the reason that I was late was because I'd been evicted. No, but a lot of people might be, and that's the story that we're going to turn to in just a couple of minutes. We talked about it yesterday. I'm kind of feeling like it's not possible to talk about it too much. So we're going to get into that, but we're also going to talk about, let's see, demonic semen, baseball, Texas, a lot of stuff, and the DNC platform, which is shaping up to be pretty much what you'd expect that it is. Before we launched into it, Ida, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay.
Yeah?
Yeah, do not watch Idiocracy right now. If you watch Idiocracy, you will stay in the constant state of panic of what our country is starting to look like. I made the mistake. But other than that, I'm here to fight another day, the good fight. So I'm alive.
I think so. I've been thinking about my wife and I. We've been watching a lot of movies. We always do. We both love movies. But every Saturday we go outside and we do a movie on a projector and we try to watch like classics and stuff like that. And I've sort of held that one off because I fear what you just described, that it would be too like what if you watch it and it's not as embarrassing as what we have now. Like I watched every episode of Floor is Lava on Netflix. I feel like that could have been Idiocracy. I loved it. So maybe I'm part of the problem.
You know what's funny is the problem is when you watch Idiocracy while Terry Crews and Donald Trump are trending.
Yeah.
The movie, you know what I'm talking about, and you're like, wow,
Yep.
how is this possible? And both trending for the ridiculous. It's just like, I don't know. Mike Judge, I DM him and I DM'd him and I was like, did you know this before? Did you not tell us? He's like, I tried to tell you.
Okay, well that's pretty cool because when I get done watching a movie, I go on like the Wikipedia to learn more. You start DMing the creator. That is cooler. Okay, with that though, lots of stories to get to, so why don't we jump into it? Everybody who is here, you can, of course, please hit the like button. That would be great. More people know that the show is going on, and you can chat along with us both in the comments, Twitter, Twitch, and send us super chats, and we'll respond to those between stories. I understand, by the way, that William Barr is testifying right now. It was just too close to the show. You know, we're not in the studio, so it's going to have to wait until tomorrow, unfortunately. But it's so far what I've seen, it's pretty much what you expect. He doesn't believe that racism is a thing, and if it is, it's only personal, it's not systemic. So, yay, he's only in charge of law enforcement in this country. That's great.
I'm so angry, but go ahead.
Exactly. Okay, with that, let's talk about another big issue. We're in a pandemic, which is a public health crisis, and the economy is ruined, an economic crisis, and creeping up every day we get closer to the next one, the housing crisis. Evictions and foreclosures are going to be happening. As we talked about yesterday, on Friday, the federal moratorium on evictions and properties with federally backed mortgages and for tenants who receive government-assisted housing expired, and most of the statewide eviction moratoriums are winding down. Great job, government, in coordinating between the federal government and the states in that way so that we're all screwed simultaneously. Proceedings for eviction have resumed in more than 30 states. Moratoriums end in Hawaii and Illinois this week, and in August, evictions will pick up in New York and Nevada. So just New York. It's not like a big issue or anything. Now, there is a chance that we could see a resumption of these moratoriums. Larry Kudlow said yesterday that the relief package will include new stimulus checks and an extension of eviction moratoriums. Bear in mind, though, he's not in charge. Senate Republicans are in charge, so God only knows what we'll get. But if it does stay that no new moratorium and evictions can proceed, it is going to be brutal, and it's not going to be brutal in an equal fashion. It's going to be hitting some communities, some states, some demographics far harder. We're going to have numbers in just a minute, but Aida, I wanted to get your take on this. How worried are you about this next emergency?
But worried that I started crying while you were, and you know I'm not a softie, I don't cry like that. But just listening to the fact that William Barr said that racism is not a thing in America.
Yeah.
Coupled with what's happening to people of color, specifically people that come from where I come from, I don't know what it's going to take. I mean, you've never seen me cry on this show before. That's how, you know, I have to say, what's it going to take, America, for you to know that this is real and this war is against all of us, even though it affects us, people of color, more. It's against all of us who don't have that pot of gold in the top 1%. And what is happening from them decreasing the unemployment to the housing to the increase of law enforcement to us being locked away and not communicating with each other and not having connection with each other. Mm-hmm. It is not a conspiracy theory. It is the reality that we're living now. And some of you are so selfish and such hateful people that you would bargain our freedom away just because you hate Black people and immigrants, and you hate women, and you hate gay people, and you hate trans people. That is how much the work has been done. They have been dumbing us down forever. And we keep saying this over and over again, trying to wake people up. And I am in the constant state of rage because you are upset about having to wear a mask that not only protects others, but protects you. But the fact that these mortgages, you know, what makes me the saddest, because I'm not a selfish person, is that the people who are going to be affected the most are people of color, you know, people that are poor, white people that are poor. And I wish that I was an Elon Musk or a Jeff Bezos, where I can make a difference in those people's lives. But people who have hearts like us don't become people like that.
Yeah.
And it's what hurts the most, I think.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Like all of the other crises we're experiencing, the one that's coming up with evictions is not, it is going to hit Black and brown people far harder. And we're going to have those numbers in just 1 second. As we go through this, though, bear in mind that the eviction moratorium going away isn't the only, it's not just one punch to these people. It's a simultaneous one, because for many of them, they're going to be losing their federal unemployment checks, the enhanced unemployment that they've been receiving during the pandemic. Now, some kind of enhanced unemployment is likely to continue, but the Republicans, their first offer was cutting it from $600 a week to $100 a week, which is like $100 insult, effectively. And the Democrats, at least one that I saw today, said, well, we're not going to like draw a line in the sand and say it has to be 600. So the surrender has begun. So God only knows where that's going to end. Now, how does that interact with the eviction moratorium? If people can't pay their rent, they're probably going to be kicked out. And if these realtors, if these companies are allowed to kick them out, they will. By one estimate, some 40 million Americans could be evicted during the upcoming crisis. For comparison, there were 2.3 million evictions in 2016. One leader cited here said we could see that just in the next month. And it is going to hit different parts of the country very differently. If you look at this, this is going to break down every state. I understand that the graphic is small, but bear with me. You can see that some states like West Virginia, up to 60% of renter households already can't afford their rent and face risk of eviction. You can see the South is being very hard hit. 50% of renters in Louisiana, 55% in Mississippi. These are crazy numbers that are going to affect tens of millions of people. And as we've alluded to, there's a racial component to this, a strong one. While about 74% of white households live in homes they own, only about 44% of Black households and 49% of Latino households do. So they are going to be a larger percentage of this. And already, Black and Latino households also pay a higher share of their income on rent in most major metropolitan areas, according to a Zillow analysis, which does not combine well with millions of people being laid off and not being given the money necessary to survive. And bear in mind that this is what we're talking about for the pandemic. But before the pandemic, it was already unequal, with a University of Washington study coming out before the American pandemic started, saying that evictions around the state shows that more women are evicted than men, and in the state's two most populous counties, eviction rates among Black and Latinx adults are almost 7 times higher than for white adults. And when a pandemic is hitting these communities harder already, when the economic damage is going to hit them harder, and the system was already set up to evict them at far higher rates, we can only imagine what August and September and October are going to end up looking like.
Well, I'll tell you right now 2 things. The crime rate is going to go up because people are going to be hungry. They're going to be struggling. They're going to be trying to take care of themselves and their families. You'll hear a bunch of racist white people talking about this Black on Black crime that doesn't exist. It's just a crime. But you're going to see the crime rate go up in these communities because people will be starving. These tent cities are going to be growing. You rich people and you wealthy people who don't like the landscape that homeless people create in your neighborhoods are going to be complaining because the homeless rate is going to go up. And then you will understand that you cannot dispose of human beings. Yeah. They are part of the ecosystem. And I'll tell you, John, I've been evicted. I had a sheriff come remove me from my home with my children. And it wasn't because I was lazy. And it wasn't because I didn't care about my children or I was a bad mother. It was because I couldn't afford to live a decent life with the amount of money that I was getting paid for doing the same job that my male counterparts were doing and not getting paid the same amount of money. Yeah. And not being able to survive. And I got an eviction, a repossession. So when I speak of this, I'm not speaking from this stands from like, oh, those people. I am one of those people. I lived in a Best Western. I lived in an Expedition truck before it got repossessed with my 2 children. Wow. So it's not that hard to become one of those people that we don't like to make eye contact with because we think that there's some sector of the world that doesn't lack the go-getter to go get, to go work. Yeah. We're human beings, and a lot of them are just their situation is a direct result of the toxic capitalism in this country.
Yeah, and in some ways, I talked about this yesterday in the show, also combined with the lack of interest in actually dealing with the pandemic from the federal government. So we had to lock down. Okay, we all agree on that. That costs some jobs. Hypothetically, if the lockdown had continued for a couple of months, we could have really killed this pandemic and opened safely. But we didn't do that. We started reopening prematurely, forcing, generally, working class Americans to go into unsafe environments. That cost lives. But also, it meant that the pandemic started up again, and we've had to, again, constrain our economy. So now more people are losing their jobs once again. That's not their fault. Like, the baristas who have to go back to work, the people working at supermarkets and in meat processing plants, they didn't say, hey, buddy, let's get this economy revving up again. They were forced to go back. And now it is going to grind to a halt because of the terrible public health strategy from both governors and also the president. And so their health is on the line during every step of this. They're going to lose their jobs again. And many of them, since they're not going to get as much assistance, possibly any assistance, a lot of them are going to lose their homes too. They're going to be kicked out of the places that they rent. And when we say 40 million people, that's between 1 in 10 and like 1 in 5 of all people in America. We already have a massive unaddressed homelessness problem in this country, and we're going to kick more than 10% of the entire US population out of where they're renting. That's insanity. That's insanity. And it's barely even being talked about aside from a couple of good politicians like Ilhan Omar and AOC and, the obvious people that you'd expect.
That's because there's an obvious agenda against the poor and, the marginalized in this community. And until people wake up and realize that these are not lofty conspiracies from behold the pale horse, this is happening in our country for real. And these are, the reason why people discredit those types of ideologies is because they're coming from the top. Yeah. But if the other thing is, like, you think about the essential workers. we have we people started honoring them and thanking them on social media. You see these big companies thanking them. They're the ones being hit the hardest by, COVID. You
Yeah.
talk about the Latino population in America. In addition to having to deal with the stigma that comes with, the anti-immigration sentiment in this country, then you think about the reality that so many Latinos are out there doing the essential jobs that a lot of people scoff at and then criticize them for having and saying they come here to take the jobs. Now they're being impacted by this, pandemic, and then there's no healthcare system in place that is adequate enough to help those people that are not making the money that these super rich people are making. And you think about the Black community, and it is the same thing. And so when we talk about this, this movement about essential workers, but we didn't even start giving a damn about these people. And I come from these people, so I don't ever look down at the people who collect our trash or ring up my groceries or deliver food or, nurses. These people have been around, and now you see people talking about them. But think about yourselves. I mean, this is a time of reckoning for us all. I have to reflect daily. How have you been with the treatment of these people prior to this pandemic? Because the way that we treat them is a reflection of what this country thinks about them. And we have some serious atoning to do in this country, but throughout the world. We just we really need we need a do-over, a makeover.
We do. We need a period where we shut down the country, not for the pandemic, after the pandemic. We just shut down and reflect on what's actually going on. But unfortunately, we know that, when there are attempts to do that, like the 1619 Project, 20% of the country loses their mind. So, okay, let's read a couple of super chats before we jump into other news. I saw there was one comment saying, please be kidding with that title from DVDV, the title of the video. No, it's true. We're going to be talking about Trump's doctor in just a little bit. Let's see. Ada says, what's that?
I said, we wish it was a joke.
We wish it was a joke. We wish everything was a joke. I wish I woke up and this whole year was a dream. Ada says, yay, I love when Ida's here. Nappy-headed nose says, yay, Ida, this just made my day. Let's see. Kai Allen says, love you, Ida. Your wit and fierce leadership really inspires me. Also, I am a woman, John. I keep forgetting that. I apologize. I don't know why you assumed you're a man. Kai, thank you. You woman, you. Thank you. Let's see. Charles Massey says, Ida rules. Netflix was off the chain. I'm still laughing.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Riley Jones says, am I crazy, or if they label Antifa terrorist, Bill Barr's definition, loosely organized, they are doing this so they can snatch up any protester, mom, vet, or just a pissed off citizen, and circumvent due process and lock them up?
Yep.
I would say yes. It appears that is the case. And isn't it amazing that, 6 days each week, it's Antifa, they're killing everyone, they burn all down Antifa, we gotta invade every city Antifa. And then the 7th is the weekly study, no one with any connection to Antifa has done any violence or whatever. And then it's like, forget that, let's go back to Antifa. It's amazing.
That's how they move their flock. They move their flock with rhetoric, and nothing is founded in truth.
Yeah, and it has to be vague, because the thing is, like hardcore right-wingers are in the KKK and things like that. These are actual organizations. The left and the center now doesn't have that. So they just come up with some broad label that doesn't mean anything, that there's literally no membership, there's no leadership. Anyone hypothetically could agree with it, and I guess that's the only criteria, which gives their flock, as you said, a warrant to hate and suspect anyone. It doesn't have to be, oh, I hate that person. I wonder if they're going to find out they have a connection to anyone. It's just, no, they're Antifa. Why? Because they're protesting.
And they keep them busy with that hate, right? So while they're busy with their hate, their constitutional rights are being abused. Their, the healthcare system is being targeted. And it's a lot of those people who are fighting for this fall into the economic bracket that will suffer the most. Yeah. And they don't even know it. That's the sad part about this.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the sad parts. There's a lot of sad parts. I think we're in the sad part, actually. Okay, with that, let's jump back into... Oh, what do you know? The sad part. Okay. Yesterday, you might have seen on Facebook and in Twitter this little group of doctors going viral in the Capitol. These are doctors who disagree with what I would call the medical public health consensus about coronavirus and what we need to do to protect against it. And it was very successful, this little meeting, despite the fact that it was on its face very laughable. Breitbart clipped out some of it, and it went incredibly viral. And it featured, for instance, a Houston doctor who praises hydroxychloroquine and says that face masks aren't necessary to stop transmission of the admittedly highly contagious coronavirus. It got tens of millions of views on Facebook just yesterday, which is pretty amazing. Donald Trump Jr. declared the video of this doctor, Stella Immanuel, a must-watch, while Donald Trump himself retweeted it. So instantly, it had the official stamp of approval of the most powerful person in the entire world, that you need to listen to these doctors. Not Fauci, that big liar, that big phony. No, people like Stella Immanuel. Focus on what they've said and done. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, you want to know Stella Immanuel? Well, she has often claimed that gynecological problems like cysts and endometriosis are in fact caused by people having sex in their dreams with demons and witches, which admittedly is a cool concept for an urban fantasy novel, but probably not a good basis for responding to a pandemic. Now, we're going to have a lot more on this doctor, but Aida, what do you think?
So this is the black lady, right?
Yes, this is one individual, yeah.
She was a black woman. So, of course, a lot of the conspiracy theorists have jumped on this and circulated this to a lot of people of color, saying that here's the thing. Two things can be true at the same time. The fact that the government has had an agenda when it comes to people of color in this country is no secret to us.
Yes.
We can acknowledge that the government has been shady. They've conducted horrible experiments, i.e. the Tuskegee experiment, to rid of people of color. Every single pandemic, disease, virus that we have had in this country is always attributed to a different ethnic group. These things can be true, right? The Ebola is from Africa. The swine flu is Mexico, China. Ironically, none of them ever come from the United States, which I think is funny because the United States itself is a virus at this point. But that can be true. And at the same time, the coronavirus, which many of us have been affected by it with family members, relatives, people that we know who've developed this virus that is an upper respiratory infection that can be deadly, that causes blood clots, that is horrible what it does to the body and highly contagious. Both of those things can be true at the same time.
Yeah.
If you don't trust the United States government, which you shouldn't because you don't have a good reason to, why would you take any chances with your health? Even if they were all lying, I would still wear a mask until it was over because I would not take the chance with my health.
Yeah.
Based on the fact that they have done shady stuff before. And if you see who's being targeted, then it feels like maybe there's an agenda because it's the black and the brown people and the poor people. But the fact that you let one video move you in any way, like I'm one of those people that advocates and says, don't listen to anything and take it as gospel, not even me.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, I'm speaking from this perspective, and I want you to use your critical thinking skills and be able to decipher and make decisions for your own well-being on your own so that you can hold yourself accountable.
Yeah.
But the truth is that even if my black and brown people who are watching, please pay attention to the propaganda and who promotes it. Because if Donald Trump, who hated the Central Park Five, they're behind this racist agenda in housing in New York, has said some of the most horrific things about people of color. Breitbart magazine, or whatever they are, endorses Donald Trump's talking points and agenda, supports that right-wing mentality that is so oppressive towards people of color. If they're endorsing this woman, why would you think that is in your best interest?
Exactly. Yeah, if this woman was like, if you look back over the history of medical experimentation and the government's involvement in that, you should be incredibly suspicious. I would totally understand that. The issue is that she's saying, trust the government, trust Trump on hydroxychloroquine. Don't trust the doctors, trust Trump. And Trump, that's why he retweeted it, is because obviously he wants people who are going to support him. And look, this particular doctor happens to be black. The doctor that they had for that pandemic video was a white woman. These are convenient people that are technically doctors that they can point to and say, haha, okay, yes, sure, you've got 99.9% of the doctors on your side, but we have someone with a stethoscope, so technically it's all equal. And the issue is that with the power and vigor of the right-wing movement on things like Facebook is that immediately, day one, they get tens of millions of views, and so like there's no chance this video is going to get tens of millions of views, but I feel obligated to try to protect some of the people who are going to come across this sort of stuff on Facebook and Twitter, and they're not tapped into it as much as we are, the people watching, this video right now. They might believe some of it. And so it seems like it's important that they understand that this doctor who Trump is holding up as someone you should trust on hydroxychloroquine says that, the aforementioned demon and witch sex causes miscarriages and impotence. So if you can't get it up, it's because you had sex with, a witch. And she believes that alien DNA is being used in medical treatments, that scientists are working on a vaccine to prevent people from being religious. And despite the fact that she again is telling you to trust Donald Trump and his government on this pandemic, she believes that the government is run in part by reptiles and other aliens. She also randomly thinks that Hannah Montana is a gateway to evil because its character had an alter ego. I don't know why her in particular. Why not Batman? Why is it got to be Hannah Montana? And she ended by saying, by the way, nobody needs to get sick. This virus has a cure. And that is why when Trump retweeted it, it got taken down, because that is simply not true. And when, tens of thousands of lives are potentially on the line, you can't have the most powerful person in the world, spreading misinformation. She's also a religious minister. If she wants to have her religious views or whatever, she is free to do that. But when the president is amplifying fundamentally untrue medical information, that's scary when you already have so many people who don't give a damn about this and literally won't do the bare minimum to protect other people's lives.
I take personal offense to it because I consider myself a witch, because I am in contact with my ancestors and I believe in, the black magic that comes from the continent of Africa. And those of us who believe, have our beliefs and love where we come from, and didn't let the white man tell us that our religions and our beliefs were bad and evil. But, I feel resentful that someone having a dream about having sex with me would become impotent like that. Speaking on behalf of all the witches. But I just tell you this.
My God.
I love the way
I got a headache laughing at that.
That black women have been used in this country in order to soothe give American people comfort, from breastfeeding women during slavery, so that white women wouldn't have to ruin the shape of their breasts, to constantly, to even in this moment where he uses diamond and silk, or he was using Omarosa to try to use the black woman in America to say, I'm an authority because I've always cared for you. It's so interesting to me, because I saw that video and I just kept pushing back from it, because I was like, that video is going to cost some people their lives.
Yeah, it will. From the very beginning, there has always been someone lining up to tell you, you don't need to do anything, everything's going to be fine. If anyone asks you to do anything, they're evil, they're a fascist. Yep. And that is why so many people have continued to party and spread it and die, unfortunately. And the thing is, if it could just be, I get to be irresponsible and maybe I die, that might be one thing. But I don't just take myself down. I spread it to other people, and other people get sick. People watching this might know people. I know someone who's in a hospital in Florida right now for COVID. And I don't know how exactly he got it, but maybe one of these irresponsible people. And it's not funny. You're funny, and you're so funny that I now have a bit of a headache from laughing at your joke, but this is not a funny situation. Okay.
Because if we don't laugh, we will cry all day long.
That is true. That is true. My wife recently put on Killing Him Softly, the classic Dave Chappelle thing. And I was like, yes, thank God. Let's just listen to some old school comedy. That's what we need. Okay. You want some comedy, though? I got some comedy for you. Let's talk about this. Okay. So, you might remember like a week ago, Dr. Anthony Fauci, who a lot of people are really obsessed with these days, threw out the first pitch at the season opener between the Yankees and the Nationals. And that's a really cool thing for him, that he gets to do that he's so respected, that he gets to throw out a pitch. Everyone was so happy for him. Well, mostly everyone. Some people apparently got really jealous because within about an hour of that pitch, Donald Trump said this. Randy Levine is a great friend of mine from the Yankees. It's president of the baseball team. He told those reporters, he said, and he asked me to throw out the first pitch. And I think I'm doing that on August 15th at Yankee Stadium, which struck people as kind of odd that, like, right as Dr. Fauci's throwing out a first pitch, Trump is suddenly tapped to throw out a first pitch too. But it's not the craziest thing. He's the president. Presidents have done it before. So, that would have been really exciting if any of it was true. But Mr. Trump had not actually been invited on that day by the Yankees, according to one person with knowledge of Mr. Trump's schedule. His announcement surprised both Yankees officials and the White House staff, which it would if he pulled it out of his glove. And it wasn't actually based in any fact. He had apparently been so annoyed by Dr. Fauci's turn in the limelight, an official familiar with his reaction said, that he directed his aides to call Yankee officials and make good on a long-time standing offer for Mr. Levine to throw out an opening pitch. Now that is, admittedly, small and sad and embarrassing, but thankfully, it's not the most embarrassing thing in this story, because it would be one thing if he was so jealous that he's like, you know what? He told me a long time ago I could do it. Let's get that going. Let's do it. But apparently it didn't happen, because a couple of days later, he sent out a tweet saying he won't be throwing out the pitch. We'll make it later in the season. So they reached out to the Yankees, and the Yankees apparently told him to go stuff it in his dugout because they're not doing it.
I'm just here to say this, and I know people are going to get mad at me for saying it, but Donald Trump isn't physically built to throw out first pitch. He looks like he will self-destruct. His body will just fall apart as soon as he throws that body. I mean, his thighs stick together. And yes, I'm body shaming Donald Trump. I'm president shaming Donald Trump. I'm just shaming Donald Trump. And if you're so dignified that you think that I'm a bad person for doing that, then that's your problem. I'm so tired of this man. This man is a symbol, not working by himself, but a symbol of everything that is bad that is happening in this country right now.
Yeah.
And those of you who still are jumping on that Donald Trump train, you know what? I just don't want to have anything to do with these people. But what I'll tell you is that it's so that, we've talked about it on the show, because he teeters between being a narcissist and a megalomaniac. But I think that he's both, right? His ego has been the biggest problem for him as the president of the United States. Yeah. His ego has been the most toxic feed that continuously makes him he walks around so vulnerable because his ego, and I know that his niece gave some insight about what happened to him as a child, because, you can see the trauma. But the fact that you're worried about this doctor, you and Dr. Fauci need to sit down, both of y'all, right? Because right now people they're watching family members on iPad screens die on ventilators because of the recklessness that has happened in this country. And yes, Dr. Fauci should have a moment. But I just think that, why are we even having this conversation right now while America is on fire?
Yeah, that's true.
To me, it's just like, and that's what I hate about this celebrity worship in this country. The worst thing that happened to us is that Dr. Fauci became a celebrity. Because we get so caught up, and then they politicized him, and then the right hates him. And then and now he's here for public service to help us through this moment, this dark moment in our history where we're losing Americans on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And now we're having a conversation on Twitter about who threw out a pitch first. It's idiocracy, my friends.
You're right. You're right. He shouldn't be a celebrity. And I would argue that in any other administration, if the same thing was going on, he wouldn't be. He would just be a doctor. I think the reason he became a celebrity is because it was shocking to people that there was someone around Trump that wasn't a massive failure, lunatic, liar. He was just a doctor who seemed to care if people lived or died. And everyone's like, oh my God, I haven't seen this in years. What is going on? And of course, as you say, Trump's ego, which I guess is what got him the presidency, and it looks like it, if he loses it, it's probably going to be that. He can't. What a mark of a sad small man, that you have someone that you've hired, you have a position to do a job, and if they do it well, and if they get like congratulated for that, that you take it personally as a bad thing, rather than you being a good leader in putting this person in that position. What a small, ridiculous thing. And because look, the baseball thing is embarrassing and stupid, but it's all because of his ego. His unwillingness to change his strategy against COVID is all because of his ego, because as everyone who's ever met him says, he can never admit that he was wrong. And to change his strategy now would be to imply that he was wrong before. And the thought of him having been wrong comes with it that many people died as a result of that. And that is too horrific for arguably anyone to process, and certainly not someone like Donald Trump. And that is why we have the same horrendous lack of leadership that we've had from the very beginning.
Also, that those people that have died are people that, there is this misconception that Donald Trump is somebody's guy. He's not. He's an elitist. He is a rich, white, straight man in America who has made his wealth on the backs of people who he resents and doesn't like, and has very vocal about not liking. So those losses mean nothing to him. And these poor white people and these middle-class white people who worship him, that walk around, they don't know. He wouldn't spit on them if they were on fire, because he sees these people as beneath him. You don't ever see pictures of Donald Trump with poor people. Like, you don't see him walk the street. You never see him taking pictures, because he's very big on optics. And everything that he wants to surround himself is what he surrounds himself with is what he perceives to be a winner. So when these people are worshiping him, all of these deaths mean nothing to him, because these people are all beneath him. And that's what is so difficult for me to accept. Why don't people see this?
Yeah, I don't get it. Like, they all think I could have a beer with him. You can't even picture him sitting in a bar. You can't, like, with regular people, like, near him.
Stool, I told you, he's not built for that.
Okay. So let's turn now to another group that is failing us on the other side of the aisle. So that'll be fun. Hey, everyone sucks. It's the damage report, everyone sucks. Okay, let's do that. The DNC has been working on their platform. Going into the convention, they have to reveal what their priorities are as a party, and of course they've been doing this virtually, and thankfully we've been able to tune in to these meetings, and as a result of it, we now know a lot of what this platform is going to look like, and a lot of it stinks. The DNC Platform Committee rejected a Medicare for All amendment introduced by longtime single-payer advocate Michael Leidy by a vote of 36 to 125. It was not a close vote. The committee also voted down separate attempts to include support for expanding Medicare to children, dropping the Medicare eligibility age from 65 to 55, and legalizing marijuana. So, regardless of what ails you, they've found a way to stop you from getting help. Whether you're a kid, whether you're maybe 55 and really sick and could really use this because it's a pandemic and people are worried about their health. 36 to 125. Jesus.
That's because 125 people are getting or potentially getting checks from corporations that benefit from us being sick all the time. And listen, we want to, when people come to me with you left Democrat, blah, 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 at this point, you have a choice. You can either be right wing, left wing, you can be for the Republican Party, you can be for the Democratic Party, or you can be for the United States of America.
Yeah.
Because at this point, that's what we're down to. And the infection reaches across the aisle. It's not just the Republicans who are, negotiable and riddled with, being paid by corporations and infected with this capitalistic mentality where they sacrifice their constituency. That is the reality of where we are right now. So at this point, we just got to vote up and down for the people of this country, because if you can see, The American people should be very concerned with who those 121 people are,
Mhm.
and they should be actively working on voting them out. Because I guarantee you that in every single one of those districts, there are people who have inconsistencies in their health care. And I just listen, folks. I don't understand what it's going to take, but it shouldn't have to take you losing somebody or being almost dead for you to care about the rest of the country. We are in trouble.
Yeah, I tweeted to that effect, like what would it take for these reps to get on board, or the people, voting on the platform. And it's like, well, here's something that's sad. We know what wouldn't get them on board: an international pandemic that has killed 150,000 Americans and its associated economic collapse, causing tens of millions to be thrown off of their health insurance because we've made the incomprehensible decision that for some reason your health insurance should be tied to your job. Doesn't make any sense that those things are tied together, but they are. And so lots of people lost their health insurance at the exact same time that they lost their job, and we could fix it with something like Medicare for All, but they've decided, no, this wasn't bad enough. Maybe if 300,000 people had died, maybe if 1 million had died, maybe then they would do it, but probably not, because as Ida rightfully points out, a lot of them are only doing this because they get paid to do it. They certainly don't do it because it's unpopular. 80% of Democratic voters support Medicare for All. And a majority of House Democrats, by the way, at least hypothetically. That is an incredibly, overwhelmingly powerful and popular policy that they are against, either because they're getting paid or to protect Joe Biden from having to run afoul of his platform. If he doesn't agree with something that the party has endorsed, he'll look bad. Now, he says hypothetically that maybe someday we move in that direction, we strengthen Obamacare to maybe get close to it, we have a public option, which is in the platform. But that's not what 80% of Democratic voters are calling for.
Aren't you tired of hearing that maybe one day we'll go in the direction?
Yeah.
One day we won't have police brutality, and seeing, not just black and brown people getting murdered, but the white people that you don't hear about. Because if you start really highlighting the stories of all the people getting killed by the police, then you're really going to have a revolt in this country, right? Aren't you tired of hearing that maybe one day we'll have Medicare for All, and that we laugh at Canada. We love to make fun of the countries who employ these policies to make the life better for their citizens. We make fun of them, right? We love to make fun of Canada and America. Yeah. It's like we have this haughty attitude, but we're on fire right now. And I say to you, people who listen, and tell the person next to you and the one across the street, the time is now. We've been saying maybe one day for centuries in this country, over and over again, maybe one day black people will be free. Maybe one day little black girls can walk down the street without getting clobbered by cops. Maybe one day gay people can have equality and get married and be left alone. Maybe one day women can own their bodies and get paid, and it could be legal for us to have the rights, and it could be constitutional for us to have our rights. The time is now. The time is not maybe one day. And anybody who's saying maybe one day needs to be checked at the door. Yeah. Joe Biden, you too. Every single one of you. You're going to be dead. That's why you're saying maybe one day, not while I'm still here, but one day. Man, forget these people. Forget them all, yo. Listen. Listen. It is time for us to say now, not tomorrow, not the day after, right now.
Yes.
I hate
people. And on Biden, like the fact that they're against legalizing marijuana, that's got to be Biden, right? Like, who still is against it? Like, I got weed right there. I have a lot of problems in my life. That doesn't come close to one of them. Nobody cares. I got, what else I got? I got a big bottle of rum. Totally legal. I could carry it anywhere I want in the country, and I could drink so much that I literally die. Legally. Yeah. It's all legal. And I got the weed right there that hypothetically legal until I cross the state border, and then it's illegal. It's moronic. It might be the dumbest thing about American politics. There's a lot of stuff that's more offensive, more damaging, all of that, but it might be the dumbest part of American politics is that there are still people that are against that. How stupid that in 2020 we're having this argument.
But that's because when you drink a lot of alcohol, you get liver damage and you can die and you become an alcoholic and an addict, and that's profitable. But marijuana eases cancer patients. There's scientific evidence that it helps cures with the cures of something in conjunction with medicine. And so it is a threat to big pharma. So of course there are a lot of people who don't want to legalize marijuana. It's not a moral issue. It's them, virtue signaling to the people who they want to vote for them, that they think are so dumb that if you trigger them emotionally about marijuana being bad and homosexuality being bad, those people don't care because they probably practice all of the things that they are publicly talking about. Because how many politicians have we caught in the act, or have been caught being gay after speaking out against gay people? And the thing is that marijuana being legal is a direct threat to somebody's pocket, and that's why they don't want to legalize it. It has nothing to do with morality.
Yeah,
nothing.
There's a great I forget the name. There's a new docuseries about different drugs on Netflix right now, and they do it about legalization of marijuana and how. Like you think, oh, so it's legal, and all the issues with that, and now these big companies are coming in and they're pushing out the people. You see these huge factories where it's legal now. This company's making tons of money. It's like, well, think about the people who were growing it and getting thrown in jail just a few years ago. Yeah, insane.
Also, all the black and brown people who are in jail for minor offenses.
Yeah.
Now the government wants to become the drug dealer. So now there's the battle between there's a big pharma component, there's the judicial system component, and it's all money, and we are all pawns in the game. And we sit here and we think these people are speaking to us because they're one of us and they care about us, and they don't. They enjoy these lavish lifestyles, and they cannot relate to us in any way because they don't have to worry about their health care. Their kids go to the best schools. They don't have to worry about safety because they live in the best neighborhoods. They have the best real estate. And we are so caught up with trying to identify with these people that we don't even think about the reality that our lives, the reality that is our own life. And that is what, I'm just baffled by this. I don't know what we need to do, John, but it's scary.
And of course, in the platform, there is some good stuff, but honestly, I'm not even going to read it because it's literally the bare minimum. And when they're against Medicare for all, I'm not going to give them credit for little things that they should have supported literally years before. So if you want it, it's available. Anyway, let's read a couple of comments and super chats before we jump into our last two stories. I wanted to read a few YouTube comments first. David Morris said, "Everything Aida says, you can tell she's either lived it or thought about it deeply previously. I think she's the ultimate moral backbone of TYT." Damn.
That's pressure.
Yeah. Tim Floberg says, "The first time," and this is all in all caps, by the way, "the first time I've ever heard something this powerful and correct on the show," which I have to admit hurts a little bit, but he's not wrong. And it was awesome. And Eric Blair says, "John Lewis was pissed off about waiting too." Yeah. Okay, there's a lot of super chats. I'm going to try to catch up on a few. Demita says, "Aida, I love you. Thank you for your voice. It is so necessary and appreciated. John, this show keeps me sane. Happy birthday to you both."
Oh, thank you.
Not a birthday, but thank you.
Every day is a birthday in America. We made it.
That's true. Janai says, "Love you guys. Aida, you're amazing. Basically, as my favorite author, James Baldwin, said, the fire next time, we are going to have to burn it down." Let's see. Probot Video asks, "Aida, what's up with your new show you're making with Tiffany Haddish? I hope the pandemic didn't screw that up for you."
We're still writing. We're still working on it. It's still alive. We'll see.
Yeah. By the way, can I just say, it's not like I knew this because, of the special and other things, but we saw Girls Trip. How is Tiffany Haddish that funny? Like, she is... and I have to imagine some of that's gotta be just her being her ad-libbing and stuff like that. She's so funny.
Yeah, I would talk to her yesterday. She called me yesterday, and we were in Reno a couple of months ago before the pandemic, and there were 3 of us in the hotel room with her. She had us crying so much, laughing so hard that we were crying. She just can't help it. She's just some of the things that comes out of that woman's mouth, but still one of the best human beings on the planet.
Yeah, she's high up there on a list of celebrities I'd want to meet just to see what she's like, because she seems so cool.
You're going to meet her.
Okay, fingers crossed. Sean G says, Ida, don't worry about crying. I cry just about every day and night, both in sadness and rage.
Yes.
Let's see. Raleigh Jones says, America is a virus, proud middle-aged white guy here. Dad served our country in Vietnam, granddad in World War II, great-granddad in World War I, and I am behind you 100%. Serving our country now means changing it. I love that.
Thank you for your service, and thank you for the legacy in your family. You know what's funny? We don't respect our military and our soldiers enough because they've politicized them too. And a lot of times that people that serve, my uncle served in the army for 30 years, and that was his way out, John. Like, we were in a marginalized community. He went at 16. My grandmother signed for him to go. It was either that or he'd be, taken by the streets into a world of crime. But we don't take into consideration that a lot of the people who serve in our military are not part of the mastermind evil at the top, because that exists in all of our systems, right? The top percent who are participating in this horrific ordeal to keep the people down so that they can keep getting rich and richer. But there's so many people who serve and they come back and they're living under tents. That's why I'm so upset with these patriots who don't give a damn about our servicemen and women who put their lives on hold to go out and protect agendas that they don't sometimes even know what they are, but their lives are at risk because they are dedicated to this country. And so I always go overseas and I travel and I perform for the troops. And I always come back feeling full because I know that the majority of those people are there because they believe they're doing something good.
Yeah.
And we have to stop. We get so political sometimes, and we're like, the military does this. The servicemen and women are doing their jobs, and they deserve to be respected and treated well and welcomed back into their country with not just accolades and salutes, but with services that enhances their standard of living in this country, because that's not the case.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously there's some bad people, we call them out, but yeah, the people who are getting recruited in the military generally doing that for economic reasons and things like that. They are far more representative of the country than the people who are making the decisions about how the military is going to be funded and how it's going to be deployed, what effect it's going to have on the world.
And I just want to say, because I would be remiss if I didn't, investigate Fort Hood, shut it down. Vanessa Guillen's life mattered. There have been 6 deaths on that military base. Another young man who's 24 years old, Latino, whose body was found. We need to protect our servicemen and women. They are providing us with a service. Their families loan them to us so that they can make the sacrifice, and sometimes the ultimate sacrifice. And we need to think about their lives. Their lives matter. To send your baby off to go serve in the military and for her to come back in a box in pieces, found in a shallow grave, is absolutely unacceptable.
Wow.
And things can be true at the same time. We can honor our servicemen and women, and we can hold those systems in power accountable for all of the horrific things that they're raining down on the people of this country.
Yeah, I don't know if it was a week or two ago, but we covered that. I hope the last death. There were multiple deaths since Vanessa.
Yeah.
How is that not a story? And it's sort of, I guess, in that area a story. It's not national news that this one base, which has a history of apparently basically organized crime going on in it, has this horrendous murder, additional murders, and no one I'm talking about.
Because the people look like me. That's why.
Yeah, you're right.
They don't look like you.
That's right. Okay, with that, let's see. Well, let me read one or two more. Luis Antonio Alejandro says the Trump administration better keep the names Hannah Montana and Miley Cyrus out of their mouths.
Yes!
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And Alexander says, Ida, of all the people at TYT, you are definitely my fave. Love how passionate you get when you call out a-holes. Yes.
Our life's work.
Okay, with that, we got 2 more stories to get to, so let's jump into it. Let me push past that. There we go. Okay. Down in Georgia, a Republican ad has had to be pulled after it was found to be using photo manipulation to advance an anti-Semitic message. Take a look at this ad supporting Republican David Perdue, saying, breaking, Schumer spending $3 million in Georgia for John Ossoff. So you have Chuck Schumer, obviously minority leader in the Senate there, and then the candidate, John Ossoff, or at least most of the candidate, because that's not actually all of him. If you take a look at this photo from 2017, which they used, they took him and they artificially made his nose larger. And you can see a direct comparison provided by Aiden Pink of Forward there, where the rest of his body's the same, but his nose is suddenly more bulbous and pointing out. Now, the people who made the ad said, in the graphic design process handled by an outside vendor, the photo was resized and a filter was applied, which appears to have caused an unintentional error that distorted the image. Obviously, this was accidental. Now, Ida, I don't know about you. I have done a lot of photoshopping, and I have put filters on things. I've never found a filter that just makes your nose bigger. Maybe like one of those dog filters that makes your ears bigger, but that's pretty easy to spot. This is clearly, in Photoshop, they stretched his nose out to make it larger.
You know, what I will say is this. When Nick Cannon said what Nick Cannon said, a lot of people asked me what I thought about it, right? And people thought that I was being manipulated by the system of the government or the entertainment business, and that I'm handcuffed because you can't talk bad about Jewish people in America because there are consequences for that. This is what I'm going to say about this anti-Semitic sentiment that seems to be in line with people who also don't like Mexicans, think that Black people are criminals, Mexicans are rapists and killers, and there's no secret that the people who hate these groups hate us all. I believe that there are people in systems throughout every system in this country that employ racism and oppression on the people of this country. And if they happen to be Jewish, they happen to be Jewish, and they are evil just like everybody else. That being said, I don't think that all Jewish people are evil, and I won't say that it's cool to make fun of Jewish people because I've gone to Israel. I went to the Holocaust Museum. I sat in that museum where they called out the names of the children who were incinerated and murdered during the Holocaust. And I was sick to my stomach. They had to carry me out. I know that if they called the names of the children who died in the slavery, African Holocaust in this country, we would still be standing there. And none of them are okay. We don't have to compare. We can just say that it's all messed up. And anybody who participates in doing stuff like that, they're just evil. Mm-hmm. So to sit here and enhance a picture of a Jewish person, like you've seen pictures enhanced with the Black features of people of color. They've done it to brown people. They did it to Obama when they made his ears big or tried to make him look like a primate. All of the people who participate in that type of thinking are the people that we need to flush down the toilet. Yeah. And so, listen, and if you need to do that to win something, like a campaign, if that is part of a strategy to enhance a campaign, then what does that say about the people that you are speaking to? Like, that is really what I think about, is like, who exactly are you going to move by enhancing the nose of someone whose relatives, ancestors were brutally murdered in a Holocaust? Like, who are the people that you're talking to? Because those are the people that I don't want to be around, because that kind of stuff is appalling. And being part of a group that's had to watch that kind of stuff happen to us without consequence for so long, where it wasn't against the law, there was no Twitter, there was no outrage. I still feel like, as a human being, that it's not cool to do that. And it doesn't mean that I'm scared of the Jewish people in Hollywood because I'm going to lose my job. It's just, I don't think it's cool to do that kind of stuff. And I don't ever want to be a part of a group of people who think that it's okay to demonize people or to, make them caricatures, in jest or strategically for political gain. Off with their heads. Get them out of here.
Yeah, I think, look, clearly they know that they can't run on, a platform of here are the policies we're going to put into effect to make your lives better. They know that they have successfully trained a lot of people, playing up their natural predisposition to be hateful towards people who aren't like them and think, I'm just going to activate that. These people don't like Jewish people, I'm going to make his nose bigger. These people don't like black people, we're going to take an ad of Obama and we're going to artificially darken it, as they do to black candidates all the time, to try to scare people. And they did that here. And John Ossoff, he's calling it out, saying, I'm Jewish. This is the oldest, most obvious, least original anti-Semitic trope in history. Senator, literally no one believes your excuses. I would go maybe just a little bit further, as I think a lot of people have probably already acknowledged. If you look at the original ad, it's not just that they made his nose bigger and that is anti-Semitic. That is true. But also, they just decided, hey, we could put him with any national Democrat. We're going to put him with Chuck Schumer for some reason. What is he campaigning with Chuck Schumer? He's campaigning with a million different people. And they're trying to buy Georgia. All this Chuck Schumer, John Ossoff money's coming in and they're trying to buy it. Now, obviously, we're worried about campaign finance getting out of control, but the idea that we're just going to choose two Jewish individuals and talk about them trying to buy everything from outside, all of this from top to bottom is anti-Semitic and disgusting. I hate all of these sorts of ads when they try to play up racial stereotypes and things like that. We got to be able to identify it and reject it.
And I hate to be the one to break it to y'all, but the people who hate black people hate Jews, and the people who hate Jews hate black people.
Yeah.
So, that's why I call for solidarity all the time, because that swastika, that does not exempt black people and brown people. Those people hate us too. They hate all of us. And so I don't know where we are as a humanity. And I know sometimes I sound idealistic and people think that maybe that's dumb. But if I don't hold on to the belief that human beings are innately good and that there are more of us who are not horrible people than not, then I don't know how I can make it through the day. Yeah. So just to think that, just the fact that somebody sat somewhere and said, this is the move, I'm just like, who are these people? Look at yourselves. Look at the people around you. Do you want to be around somebody who would think, yo, this is what we do. We're going to make his nose bigger because he's Jewish. We're going to put him with Chuck Schumer because he's Jewish. And you know what? That's going to scare the white people who hate Jews away. Because that's the only people who are going to, because I would look at something like that and that's not going to move me away from somebody.
Yeah.
So that's very telling about where we are right now.
It is. You don't want to be in that room with those people.
Nah.
But they have a lot of, in the rooms of power, they hold a lot of them. Okay, really fast, let's run one more story. Because we were talking about Trump's ego, how it's interacting with the pandemic, and how that's probably going to hurt him. Texas is not supposed to be an important state in this election, right? It's supposed to be solidly red. It's not supposed to be a consideration in a presidential election. But it is, in no small part, because Donald Trump has so terribly botched the response to this pandemic, and the Republican governor has done a really bad job too, that ads like this get to be shown during the election. And by the way, notice there is a tiny little Easter egg in this.
Texas is opening up, and I'm not sure that we even have a choice. I think we have to do it.
Abbott's stay-at-home order expired on Friday, hours after Texas reported its largest single-day total of COVID-19 deaths.
I want to commend the governor for your decisive action, reopening this economy.
Are you willing to take a chance on your survival for your children and grandchildren? I'm all in.
Texas is in crisis mode.
You flattened the curve here in Texas.
Demand is overwhelming COVID testing sites. An hours-long wait.
A major federal testing site in Texas set to close tomorrow, even though coronavirus cases there are still surging.
In the hard-hit Rio Grande Valley, the largest hospital system says they are near capacity.
Since May, the state's case count has exploded.
Now they have set up a panel to decide who gets treatment and who gets to just go home and die with their family.
Governor Abbott, when you look at the job he's done in Texas, I rely on his judgment.
So, look, that's a devastating ad. We've seen many of them over the past few months, and he is tragically producing more material for ads like that every day that he refuses to listen to the doctors. Texas has been, it's one of the most hard hit in this second wave. I just saw, I think it was in the last 24 hours, they reported an additional 600 deaths from, prior parts of the pandemic that they hadn't reported before. So now they're at like 5,700 people have died just in Texas. And because they wanted to reopen. And yes, it was my voice in part of that, because we were talking about the death panels thing, and that was a nice little Easter egg. But I'm glad that people are talking about the fact that the Rio Grande Valley is so incredibly hard hit. The hospitals are filled up. Like we talked about in that story, they're literally trying to decide, we have a certain number of beds, there's nowhere to send other people, so some people are just so sick that we're not going to treat them at all. We're just going to send them home so that we have the beds for those that we might conceivably be able to rescue. That's not what's supposed to be happening in America. Not in 2020, not with our resources.
That's why you tweet a video of a doctor saying that it's not real, or that it's not as bad as you think, or it doesn't spread without wearing a mask. Because when Vice President Pence said, I want to congratulate you for opening back up this economy, that's just code for I want to congratulate you and say thank you for making sure that we're still making money and keeping us rich. Mm-hmm. Because the truth is that even if you go back to work to get money and you get sick and then you can't afford to get the proper care that you need, and that care does not exist in the first place, what benefit is it to you to be, participating in the economy with your, faux patriotism about going out to work because you've been conditioned to be a rat on the wheel to keep making money for people who are now going into becoming trillionaires in this country. But, we also in this country, as the idiocracy is upon us, we demonize entire institutions and groups. And Texas is one of the states where people make fun of and say, Texas should succeed and Texas is this, and Florida, they do it as well. There are a lot of good people in the state of Florida and Texas who are victims of these governments. This evil menage a trois that Donald Trump has with the governor of Florida and Texas is rained down on his people, and it's caused a lot of death and a lot of turmoil and a lot of horrific things in those states, because they always weaponize those states as being red states with the people who get it for the conservative party. And then the people who are not on board with that are victims of all of those policies that, the governor, the mayor of Miami, Suarez, he did his own thing to save lives in Miami, and he's a Republican. But he was a COVID victim, and he made it
early.
Yeah, and Javier made it a point to take care of the people in his community, because he said, I am responsible and accountable to these people. So when we sit there and talk about Texas and, we make it a joke, like Americans, we do it. Like I said earlier with Canada, that's just become a part of the play when you dumb down the country and you make a generalization about groups as a whole. Is you people in Texas, you got to advocate, and you have to speak up, and you have to show up at the polls, because these people are trying to kill you so that they can get richer at your expense.
Yeah. Yeah. And like we mentioned a couple times now, I say this to Donald Trump because I know he watches. Trump, do you want 100 more ads like this between now and the election? Do you want to just continually generate material that is going to potentially make it impossible for you to win? I don't know. America sucks, so anything's possible, but the idea that you could preside over the worst failure of the U.S. government in living memory and get reelected, I hope that that's not true. And if he can't, it's because of things like this. It's because, even like Abbott in Texas is like, he's like, no, I'm taking this more seriously. I'm like telling people they should wear masks and stuff like that. But he also isn't mandating it. And he's stopping localities from mandating it because he doesn't want to piss off Donald Trump. And so, like, thanks to my wife, I have family in the Rio Grande Valley now. And some of them have been exposed to coronavirus because people walk around without masks. They work without masks. And the localities that would like to institute it, like the one I talked about that has the death panels now, person in charge in that area said, we're going to tell people we want you to wear masks, but we can't force them to. It is just optional because the state isn't allowing us to. So even where they're sort of taking it a little bit more seriously, they're still trying not to make Trump mad. And what makes Trump mad is taking the pandemic seriously. And that will kill people in Texas and beyond.
And he's getting tested daily. He's not exposed to it. He has protections. He lives a lavish, wealthy life. So, of course, he can stand on his, he can die on that hill because for him, he's not being personally affected. He's not coming in contact with essential workers. He's not going to the grocery store. He's not riding in an Uber.
Yeah.
He have to go to a regular hospital. So, of course, he can say all of these things about coronavirus. What I don't understand is that the people who have to ride an Uber, drive an Uber, go to the grocery store, the people who are exposed that have to go to the normal hospital, why are those people still supporting this agenda when you are vulnerable? And it shouldn't take you to die for you or someone to die for you to take this seriously. And the thing I was going to say, it is undeniable that Donald Trump is going down in history as the worst president of all time. This anti-intellectual movement, the making fun of people who are smart and educated, who are then have to go and be in debt for acquiring these said educations that you mock, are the ones that are going to write the history books, not the dummies who are asking for supercuts to open and that want to go back to the Golden Corral. It's the people who are educated and write history and learn it and are the ones who are going to be framing this time in the future. And if you think that those people that you've been mocking and calling smug and spitting on are going to favorably mark you down in history and write you down in history and anything that's good, you are sadly mistaken. Y'all better stop making fun of people who read.
Yeah, that would be nice. If I could change one thing, that would be a big one. Ida, you've been the best as always. By the way, I just saw a comment from Javier Fernandez who says, "I love Ida. Be a witch, Ida. Hocus MF Pocus." Anyway, it's always great to have you on. And obviously the fans love you so much so that they sort of forget that I'm even on the show while you're here, which is what I want. But anyway, we always appreciate you being here. Everyone check out Truth Serum, by the way.
Fridays at 12 p.m. Pacific time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ida.
Thank you for having me.
Is there anything else where they can see you in the near future? I mean, I know, unfortunately, comedy's been hard hit by this thing.
Yeah, no, I have a weekly show on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Pacific time where we work out jokes. It is live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. And every week a different comedian stops by and we just work out new jokes. It's called the Jokes Only Zone. So we only do jokes. We don't talk about politics and social issues. But and then Friday, I'm excited because Friday on Truth Serum at 12 p.m. Pacific time, also on all the same platforms. I have a show where I'm speaking to 3 transgender humans. I have 2 transgender women and a transgender man, and we're going to really talk about the transgender reality in our country and marginalized communities, and really just give talk about the humanity of transgender people. So Ashley Preston, awesome. Marie Preston is going to be there, and I'm just excited about the show because we have to start talking about these things and normalizing them because these are our people and they're not going anywhere. So we need to protect all of our people.
Yeah. That sounds awesome. Thank you, Ida. Stay safe out there.
Thanks.
And for those of you at home, let's check in with a few more comments. Let me see what's been going over on Twitch. What do you know? Obi-Wan Kenobi gifting subs as she so often does. Thank you, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're the best. Let's see. Okay. Nauman La Vida Pura gifted a sub as well. Thank you. See a lot of love from Semper Fire Dog and Goner in Paradise for Ida. Thank you for that. Just Gen Period over on Twitch said Midas Touch watches TDR. I guess no big deal. They're watching the show. We just want people to know about the stories. That's the only reason I care about it, really. I just want people to know about the stories. Anyway, yeah, and thankfully, by the way, can I just say that, I watched the video because it's about text, I care about text and everything, and, how thankful I was that it was the progressive group that put this out. I don't necessarily want to be in a Lincoln Project one. But thank you, Jess Ortega on Twitter as well. Jeff Horton saying that Ida's fire is what fuels his days on #TDR Live over on Twitter. I really appreciate that. A few more super chats. Stevie Mao says, "Let's vote, people. It's going to be close, and our lives depend on it." Likely. And remember, it's not just the presidential election. There's so many lower, Senate and governor and representatives and all of that. Very important too. So don't miss that. Let's see. Das Boys Fleisch says, please ask marijuana to hack Nancy Pelosi's 2 high-end fridges so that they play TDR content all the time. We gotta work on that. Wasn't there something where they hacked into a refrigerator? MSM says, joined late due to a meeting, but had to send a super chat because I saw my girl Aida, such a queen. 100%, thank you. Chris says, they need a close relative to die to make the decision to incorporate Medicare for all. Maybe, or maybe not even. If they're getting paid enough, like, they've really... Jesus. DV, thank you. America is a second world country says, sad my golden shower idiocracy joke wasn't read. I apologize. I didn't see it. Nothing against idiocracy. Jermaine Lewis, thank you for your keep it up. Kay Elizabeth as well, thank you. DV early on said, FYI, pause Star Wars for this, the last one, but still, granted, don't pause Last Jedi for this, but, you know, you can do the last one. Anyway, and Amanda, thank you for your super chat as well. There were others, I apologize, we're super over, and I have a very important interview. We're going to be talking to Jonathan Metzl in just a little bit. That'll be going up on the channel, but again, it's not live, so you do have to go to the channel and check that out, including interviews from yesterday, so, you know, check it out. And by the way, I would show you a dog right now, but do you know what is happening right now with my dog? Abby is being groomed, and so that shaggy mess that you've seen over the past few weeks, getting longer and longer, is going to be a totally new dog on tomorrow's show. So hopefully I'll be able to show that to you then. Until then, thank you for watching, and stay safe out there.